These blessings, there's more to them than just, who was it? Fred Hammond, blessed in the city, we're blessed in the field, blessed when we come and when we go. We cast down every, right? That's a great praise song. Love it. However, if you're not doing anything with your children, with your land, with your livestock, you can't be blessed. It says your basket and kneading bowl will be blessed. You do know that in order to make bread, you've got to grow the grain. Then you've got to harvest the grain. And then you come back in and you've got to knead that and make it. I could see how Miles and Rowe would be teaching like your oven. You only use it once a week on Sundays and you don't do anything else with it. He was alluding to, what are you working at? What are you working at with your hands? And there is something that you can have that can allow you to multiply. But I'm telling you, if you're not doing something or putting something in the ground to multiply, then there's nothing to multiply. Even wicked people can multiply. People who aren't thinking about God. You've got to have something. Now, blessing, multiplying and blessing are two different things. So I was just talking when I said wicked people. I was saying they can multiply. They can have land and livestock. Maybe they've stolen it or they did. But if you don't have anything, it can't multiply. That's what I'm getting at. Okay. You will be blessed when you come in and when you go out. I wondered about this. Why give a blessing about when you come in and when you go out? Is there something about movement or something about, what do you think of when you think of be blessed when you come in and when you go out? Do you think of it as just when you're in your house and you're outside of your house? Have you ever thought about that? I think about the weirdest things sometimes, but what does that really mean? Blessed when you come in and when you go out. You might have to travel. You might have to move. You could live in the city, maybe have your farm out in the country. Maybe you have to go to another state or a city to conduct business. Maybe you need to move. There's this idea that you're not isolated. I think that's what I'm getting at, right? Is that you can't sit in your house by yourself in your apartment and say, God is going to make me wealthy. There is going to need to be interaction with you. And you can't be fearful of moving among the people. Whatever people. You can't be fearful of going out and doing things and coming back home. This whole idea of blessing, Elohim is covering every aspect of in ways that he'll bless us. In ways to know that we are going to be safe. It doesn't mean you don't use wisdom. Okay. Verse 7. Jehovah will cause the enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will march out against you from one direction, but flee from you in 7 directions. That means you're going to have enemies rise up and come against you. And they are going to march out in their full array. They may even get a few shots out. But he promised that they would be defeated before you. Which means you can't run away. It means you need to stand there and really allow him to defeat them for you. And he says they will march out against you. So understand that they are going to come. You're going to have enemies. And because enemies come at you, that does not mean that you're not blessed. So when you see other people and it looks like the enemies are coming out after them, don't just automatically run off your mouth and think that they are not blessed. And don't you get discouraged when enemies come out against you and think that you're not blessed or something is wrong. Because he said they're going to come. And they're going to march out against you. which means everybody else will be able to see them, right? The Lord will grant you a blessing on your barns and on everything you do. He will bless you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So think about that. If the Lord will grant you a blessing on your barns, that means you have a storehouse, which means you have to build it and you probably need somewhere to have it. And then you probably got to have stuff inside of it. Blessings don't come to lazy people. Blessings don't come to people who are not industrious and working towards something and putting some things up for savings. Right? And so he will bless you in the land that he is giving to you. He is giving you. Listen, there are territories that Elohim has for you where you belong. And one of the things that I noticed being an American traveling is that how much in other countries many people want to come to America. And think of the fact that I don't mind not living there, that there's something wrong with me. Seriously, really think that there's something wrong with me. And I would say to them, the Lord promised to bless you in the land that he is giving you. You don't have to be in America to be blessed. You don't have to be in South Africa or Europe or wherever you don't have to be somewhere else, right? Because he's going to bless you in the city and in the country, and he's going to bless you in the land that he's giving you. Now, if he's called you to another place, like I believe he has for me, that's why I'm not in the U.S. If he's called you to another place, then you heed that call. Then you go. But there's a difference between Elohim calling you and you just wanting to go somewhere because you think that you're going to be blessed better there. So you think if you live in New York City or if you live in Atlanta or if you live in California, that somehow you have more opportunity and you're going to be blessed. I want to tell you that you are blessed in the land that Elohim has given to you. So you just need to know where that is. And maybe that is a corner block somewhere in a city we didn't even know existed in that state. You are blessed in the land that he's giving you. So don't long to be somewhere else, but really come to understand where it is that he's called you to. And wherever that is, dwell there. And if he's telling you to get up and leave and go somewhere else, go to the other side of the U.S., go to Canada, go to Australia, wherever he's calling you to be, go. Be obedient to that place. Yes, MD, it's a place of assignment. Know where you're called to be. And don't be afraid to go there alone. So, verse 9, the Lord will establish you as his holy people, as he swore to you, if you obey the commands of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. Then all the people of the earth will see that you bear Jehovah's name, and they will stand in awe of you. And that's my prayer as I move through these different countries, right? And I don't know the culture or the language, or times I look extremely different. Like when I was in Vietnam, I really did not look like an Asian at all. But could they know that the Lord's name was with me? Can people know that when you go to the grocery store, when you're pumping gas, when you go to the mall? Will they see Elohim's name on you? That's the real test. No matter where you are, can people see that? But that happens by you walking in his ways and in his commandments. The Lord will make you prosper abundantly with offspring, the offspring of your livestock, and your land's produce in the land the Lord swore to your ancestors to give you. And this is why it's so important to know your family history, to know where they started from, what's going on, to be able to tell that to your children or nieces or nephews, whoever it is that's following after you. What do you know about where you are? I think that's just as important to have an understanding of that. If you are staying in a land where your family and your ancestry have been there for a few decades, find out what's going on. Find out what they've been called to do. What gifts or talents were given to them that were passed down, and maybe some that were not. And try to understand that anything that needs to be revealed to you, Elohim can reveal to you in retrieving lost documents, in dreams and visions. So don't feel frustrated because you can't immediately find what you're looking for. If what you are looking for is because, Father, I want to understand, where did you place the land that you gave to my ancestors? What is that? What is the wealth? What are the gifts? What are the talents? What have you given to them that we need to be producing at this point? And these are conversations that you should be having with your children, should you have children. Verse 12, the Lord will open for you his abundant storehouse. That's interesting. You don't have to build an abundant storehouse. You don't have to go somewhere else and ask somebody else for their storehouse. The Lord will open for you his abundant storehouse. The sky, to give your land rain in its season and to bless all the work of your hands. You will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow. He has an abundant storehouse, and he intends to provide the rain, the environment that you need for what you're working on to prosper. But he tends to bless all the work of your hands. What are your hands doing? And it's so important. And I know we like to think that we can't. They say you can't be wealthy working for somebody else. It depends on how you define what wealthy is and what you're doing, right? Because if you have your expenses lower than your income, you can be wealthy. There's nothing that prevents you from investing, from having what we call a side hustle now. There's nothing that prevents you from investing and saving your money or buying land or going into partnership with another business. It's the work of your hands. What are your hands doing? If you work at McDonald's, it is the working of your hands. The point is, do your expenses exceed your income? You're never going to be wealthy that way. So I don't know that I think you cannot be wealthy. I'm doing the little air quotes, wealthy when you work for somebody else, when you're an employee. The point is, can you keep your expenses low? Can you manage your money? Can you save? Can you be obedient to what Elohim is saying? Because then he's going to bless the works of your hands. Who's not to say that one day you won't own the company, or that you won't get raises, or that you won't do whatever, even within that company? It's the work of your hands. You will lend to many nations and you will not borrow. I used to borrow a lot when I was younger, simply because I just didn't know how to manage money. This verse right here, this section, this sentence, just speaks to me about maturity and money management skills. When you're at a place when you can lend, you can make interest off of lending. It's called investing in some ways. There's some maturity here, but it's definitely we're seeing that you have to be working or doing something. Okay. Verse 13. The Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You will only move upward and never downward if you listen to the Lord your God's commandments I'm giving you today and are careful to follow them. The Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You will only move upward and never downward if you listen to the Lord your God's commandments I'm giving you today and are careful to follow them. Sometimes we say we want to be the head, but you realize that if you're the head, that you're out front and that there are people that are following you. You're not just the head just to look pretty. Comes the responsibility with being the head. And sometimes we're not the head because we're not responsible enough to be the leader. I think sometimes we hear the word head and it's just figurative to us. It's just like window dressing. Oh, I want to be the head. I want to be in front. There is responsibility with being the head. There's a lot of decision making that has to come with being the head and not the tail. The tail you can just follow. But when you're the head, you have responsibility for others. And some of us are not ready for that kind of responsibility. And therefore, we are not the head and may never, ever be the head. And it's possible to just be the head in certain arenas, but not in others. Right? You may lead in certain arenas, and other arenas you may follow. You'll need to really talk to Elohim about your situation. Don't just claim that you want to be the head and not the tail. Get a better understanding of what it is that Elohim is talking about. Yep. Do not turn aside to the right or to the left from all the things I am commanding you today, and do not follow other gods to worship them. It's easy, I think, to turn aside to the right or to the left from things that he's commanding you today. Turning aside would mean you get distracted. That's what I think of when I hear do not turn aside to the right or to the left. It means you could get distracted by something that would cause you to go over there. And maybe you just want to rest, or maybe you're tired. When we think about the things that Elohim commands us to do, things that he's commanded here, I think this is where I get back to, you can't be concerned about whether or not your neighbor is building or working or what they're doing in their house or what they're doing on social media or what they're doing at church. There are things that have been tasked to you. Do those things. Be focused on those things. It's just so easy nowadays to be distracted, to look at what other people are doing. And you really can only do that if you're going to turn your head to the left or to the right, because he's commanded you to work, to build barns, to plant, to have seasons, to lend, to be there's so much responsibility in these blessings. You don't have time to look at what other people are doing or to make judgment calls about that. Okay? Anyone have any comments they want to say on blessings before we look at cursings?
You left out the other part of that last verse. That's
Go
what
ahead
one
and
part
teach it.
of serving other gods. And it is a question I wanted to ask like at the end, but that verse led right into it of, if these laws have been here all this time, what caused us to not know them? They're in the Bible. Everyone has a Bible. We've had a Bible since we were babies. What has caused us to not know the laws?
Oh, you're really asking a question. I thought you were being rhetorical. I was waiting for you to keep teaching.
It was sticky. The answer of it is a real sticky situation because the introduction of the other book that's in the Bible caused us to not concentrate on the laws. Therefore, we were left vulnerable of not knowing all of those things that you read before that will cause curses and the thing that will cause blessings. We have no idea if they were curses or blessings. Like, we're Jamaican, so we know some dirty people where they have relations with their mother-in-laws, and they have relations with the daughter and the mother. And it's like, what happened that we all reading the same book, but didn't know that those were curses and blessings? And I really have to blame it on that New Testament that allowed us to now concentrate on a figure, a character in there that became a God per se. We that know better know that there's only one. But the rest of our people have been raised from little to equate him with God. And it said in that last part of the verse, if we don't do that, we'll receive the blessings. But because we don't know the front part of the book, we don't know and see that he and a lot of the characters in that New Testament fit the description of the things that allow us to go down the road of now receiving curses. That's just reading it. That's not picking any sides or anything. We're just analyzing what happened to us that now we have to now be here on Sabbath recalling what the Most High said. Because eventually and ultimately that's what we're all striving for. That's what we all cried for. That's what our hearts were broken about. And we cried out that we want to get closer to him. And he's bringing and brought us so much closer to him. And by doing that, we start to see where we went wrong. So I hope it's not offending anyone, but I just noticed that if we just stick to the laws like how we've been reading, if we just stick to them, forget everything else. But those, our lives will be so much more peaceful, successful. We'll have true wealth according to what Torah said. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you for that, Face. And the problem really is that we are going to have to take our own responsibility. Because as much as there's the second half of the book, and I'm telling you, it didn't dawn on me till much later in life. But all the people in the second half of the book were reading the first half of the book. So then you'd have to say, why is there such a curse for false teachers? Why is there such a responsibility in the Bible and curses placed on those who are false teachers, who lead people astray? This is why. And yes, there's a responsibility to leadership. There is responsibility to parents to teach their children. And the thing is, we have taught the children according to what we knew. And so if you were raised in a generation that couldn't read, then you were at the mercy of those that you trusted because you could not read to know any different. And this would go back to that point you brought up about the blind person. Cursed are they for leading the blind people astray. They will need to answer to Elohim for that. And there still is such an indoctrination and a mindset that just comes from tradition, from culture. And there's absolutely no excuse for that. It is a hard cultural thing. And I didn't really realize it till I got married and I'm living here in Kenya. And my husband is from the Luya tribe. And each tribe has their own different beliefs and what they do, even circumcision of their children, all sorts of things. One thing I noticed is that he did things according to his tradition because that's how he was raised. And I'm like, I don't understand, or I agree with that. That's Torah, or I don't agree with that. That's not Torah. And yeah, I, with all my words, could not just outright defeat tradition. They had to come into an understanding and a knowledge, and only Elohim can do that. And only a willing heart willing to hear from Elohim can do that. And he's always waiting and open, Elohim is, to speak to us and to teach us and to encourage us to know more about him should we slow down to ask. But let's not underestimate the stronghold of tradition. Look at the very Jewish people that we talk about who have built their midrash and their Talmud and all their rabbinical teachings, and they were taught that the rabbis were more holy than the prophets. You could read something in the Torah, but if 2 or 3 rabbis said, nope, that's not the way to go, you're like, okay. And we're sitting here, what? Are you crazy? What are you doing? But it's a tradition, man. And those things are deadly. Those things are deadly. And we, in many cultures, many places, many homes, those are the things we battle with. And those who have led astray, they are cursed and they will have to deal with that. So what happens when we come to an age of accountability? When we know, then what do we do? Right? And only Elohim is the one that gives mercy as he deems. And so for people who don't get it till they're on their deathbed, or people who don't get it till they're in their 50s, Elohim is merciful. And he will show mercy to whom he will show mercy. And we just have to say, you know, I don't even have enough time to judge all the people or look at all the people who don't get it. Like right now, I need to make sure I'm getting it. I need to make sure that people see me and they can see his name on me. And the things that I put my hands to are blessed, such that other nations and other people will look at me and say, I want to know the God that you are serving. And so that's what we have to do. It's really where we have to be about that face. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay. Let's dive into some of these curses. Hey, Shabbat Shalom to you, Miss Doreen. We are in Deuteronomy 28. We're about to get to verse 15. We are talking about the blessings and the cursing, and really we're wanting to get to the curses because that is a part of wealth, because that is part of the reason why you lose wealth or you don't get it, because you have a curse or you're living in a curse, right? And we brought up the fact that it's the leadership that really can dictate your house, your church, your community, your business, wherever you are. And we look at just Daniel as an example of someone whose heart was pure towards God, but yet he lived in the very nation that was taken into captivity in Babylon. Why? Because the leadership had led most of the people astray, and they were astray. They were not righteous. And yet, here's this righteous man along with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they are taken into captivity. And most likely, they were castrated. And they had to live among things that they were told were unclean. And yet their heart was righteous. So if you looked at them from the outside, you're like, oh, all those Jewish people are just cursed. Let's be careful about how we lump things in place and make judgment calls. So we're going to look at the curses because these are the things that can keep us from not being wealthy or that can take our wealth from us. There's a lot here to the curses, so we might not get all through it in this section. We may finish it in part 2. Here we go. Verse 15. But if you do not obey, I'm reading from the CSB, but if you do not obey the Lord your God by carefully following all these commands and statutes I've given you today, all these curses will come and overtake you. You'll be cursed in the city and cursed in the country. Your basket and your kneading bowl will be cursed. So basically, we're giving just the opposites of the things that were blessings. So it is possible you could say, I am working, Regina. I am having a kneading bowl. I do have land. I have herds. I have flocks. I have businesses. And yet, you can be cursed. So again, having those things do not dictate the possession of those items. Do not dictate that you are blessed or cursed. Can you see that? Shabbat Shalom, Nia. We are in Deuteronomy 28:15. So as we begin these curses, you'll be cursed in the city, cursed in the county. Your basket and your kneading bowl will be cursed. Your offspring will be cursed, and your land's produce, and the young of your herds, and the newborn of your flocks. You will be cursed when you come in and cursed when you go out. These are the opposites of what the beginning stated. So the possession of things does not mean that you are blessed or cursed. You get that? Okay. Verse 20. The Lord will send against you curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you do until you are destroyed and quickly perish because of the wickedness of your actions in abandoning me. Let me read that again because I want you to tell me who's sending the curses. The Lord will send against you curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you do until you are destroyed and quickly perish because of the wickedness of your actions in abandoning me. This is where I really think about, so what is witchcraft and witch doctors and voodoo? Like, so people can send curses against you. But if you are in alignment with Elohim, the enemy may come against you, as he stated, and they will march out, but they will not overtake you. Where do you stand on you are living Torah, you love Elohim? Here's the thing. Can witchcraft and voodoo and curses, can they affect you? What are your thoughts? Notice I use the word affect. Can they affect you? Shabbat Shalom, Miss Doreen. What's your thoughts?
Shalom. That's what's not weird. My thoughts is this: it can affect you if you ponder and allow it to get to you. Because from my understanding, and I know what we're talking about here, what Yah can put in us. Let me say my first thoughts. If I'm totally sold out to Yah and focusing on his word, I should be okay. However, if he allows certain things to come upon me, then it can. But if I understand that he's allowed it to come upon me, I know that it's something for my good I have to learn from. If I think of Job, it wasn't a curse. Was it a curse? Was it a curse? I don't know. But the enemy, Satan, was allowed to touch him, but not to kill him. Yeah. Now, I know there's some countries, I know even my own forefathers' parents from Jamaica, I know certain things are practiced, but I think certain curses could also be generational curses of practices and behaviors that we do and allow it to continue in our lives so we can allow certain things to happen too. I'm trying to think of something practical, but I can't at this present moment. But if I know, I don't know, something's being said about me, I can let it bother me so it becomes a curse. So if someone says to me, you will not do well in life, etc., if I ponder on that and think about it, then I won't. But I think otherwise, yes, I will do well. And yes, there's trials and tribulations in life. Then I will possibly do well regardless of the struggles that may come along because life is still life. And that's my thoughts.
Thank you for that. MD said she stepped away. So what we're talking about, MD, is we're talking about we are now in Deuteronomy 28 and we're looking at the curses. And very clearly the Lord said in verse 28:20, the Lord will send against you curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you do until you are destroyed and quickly perish because of the wickedness of your actions in abandoning me. So my question to the room is, for places where there is witchcraft and voodoo, which is actually everywhere, right? Even in the US, even in Western countries, in Europe, everywhere has witchcraft, voodoo. You just have it to a different extent. My question is, can that affect you? Can that harm you? And I've been asking the room what they thought about knowing that if you disobey Elohim, he said he will send you curses and he will bring confusion and rebuke. So I guess the way to answer that question is it depends. If you are walking according to Torah, right? And in the basic sense with Torah, that is everything from commandment 1 to 10. And so I think about the people who are not keeping Sabbath, but yet they know the 10 commandments, but they're not keeping it. But then I have to give myself my own advice, right? Do you really have time to judge whether or not they're blessed or cursed? That's not the point. The point is, for those of us who are having this conversation right now, can voodoo or witchcraft affect you? And I say it depends because, one, we've seen earlier in this passage that the enemy will come against you. And he will march out against you. But the Bible says he will come out, march out against you, but he will flee from you 7 different ways. So it will come against you. It will face you. There's nothing in here that says that you won't get a scuffle. There were many times that the children of Israel went into battle. Sometimes they didn't have to fight. Sometimes they had to go in battle. Sometimes they lost some people. But when I think about this, I'm going to go back to my example with Daniel. Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. Nothing happened to him. However, Daniel was still taken into captivity. He left. He was taken from his land. He was forced to live among unclean people. That would be called a curse. Being one of the king's messengers and things, most likely he was castrated. That was absolutely against Jewish law. He was automatically cursed from that. And yet we look and we read about him, but we don't take into context the fact that he was in captivity. He was taken in Why didn't he get escape? Is he cursed? Was he disobedient? Or was it his leadership? Was it his ancestors? This is that generational curse, right? They were not paying attention. They were being disobedient. And eventually Elohim's like, you know what? Here y'all go. Babylon is coming to scoop you all up. So I think it depends. Because as far as we know about him, when we meet Daniel, like everybody was just taken into captivity. Even some of the prophets, when we read about Jeremiah and Isaac, they were in captivity. Nehemiah, until he was able to be returned. So the thing is that we have to be so careful how we look and judge a situation. This is why we just don't have time to judge other people's situations. But going back to the question about curses and witchcraft and what can be spoken against you, I believe that they can come against you. The Bible says no weapon formed against you shall prosper. We've all heard it said, but it was formed. Prospering means to overtake you and defeat you, right? Yes, because of their tongues. Yeah. So we cannot look at someone else's situation and say that we're going to make a judgment call about what's going on with them. So we cannot describe people as blessed or cursed by our own human mind or our thoughts. And we can only look at ourselves. And I just have to say that if you're going through a challenge, what you need to find out from Elohim is, reveal to me, is this something that I have done in my life that needs to be cleared up? Or is this an enemy that's coming at me, but is going to flee different ways? Now, one of the things that I've heard other preachers say is it's can be really difficult to ask that question when you're in the midst of it, right? So when you're in the midst of enemies coming out at you, it's hard to be like, God, why? That's probably not the question you should be asking. But just Elohim, what is your strategy? What do I do? And sometimes that requires for you to wait for him to answer. Sometimes you do nothing. Sometimes he tells you to move this way or that way. But curses coming against you do not mean that you are out of alignment with Elohim's will. But once, if you are obedient, they should never overtake you when. Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I obey your word. Psalm 119. Very good, MD. So you left that in the chat. We do go astray, but also know that there can be times that we haven't gone astray and an enemy does come up before us. And that's why it's so key for us to be in that type of relationship where Elohim, where there's trust. Where there's trust. And if you are living right, then you have nothing to fear. That comes from a life being obedient to his laws. And you have nothing to fear. The only time you should fear is if you know that you've done something to not be disobedient, to not be obedient. Yes, Doreen, we do have to trust the truth of his word. But it requires it. Are you living according to Torah? Because that's what he's talking. When he's talking right here about his word, he is not talking about anything from John to Revelation.
Thank you for listening to Selah Sabbath Studies, where ancient truths meet modern life. We pray what you've heard today invites you into deeper reflection and a deeper walk with the Creator. If you'd like to join us for live Sabbath sessions, find the room on Clubhouse. And if you're listening after the fact, feel free to leave your thoughts or questions in the comments. We do read and consider them and will respond. Until next time, pause, reflect, rise. This is Selah.